So I'm going to start with a quote. When you are on a journey, it is certainly helpful to know where you are going, or at least the general direction in which you are moving. But don't forget, the only thing that is ultimately real about your journey is the step that you are taking at this moment. That's all there ever is. Comments. Let's see.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think that kind of sums up, well, I suppose, going towards a goal, which is ultimately kind of all we can do in life is strive towards some certain goal, and um, having a clear path set in front of you is one of the most important things to achieve said goal. But then the day to day living of that is the pursuit of the the small little steps, and remaining present in those small little steps is key. But the topic of today's episode, and being able to think into the future is at the core of that. You have to kind of have laid the foundations and see where you're going first before you embark on said journey.
The reason why this topic is important is because I'm extremely guilty of it. And I needed to be kind of put in my place a little bit.
Okay.
um, I obviously over the last couple of weeks I've done a lot of reflecting. Like being injured, not being able to do your sport gives you a lot of time to look at yourself, look at your life, look at your past, look at your future. And uh, I would say that I think very positively about my future, which is good, and it's maybe something that we can get into later on. But it is good to think positively about your future. But I found myself thinking extremely deeply about this future. And maybe some would say like fantasizing kind of over the future. Um, and this maybe would have happened even before I was injured. I'm constantly thinking about what's next. And then when something like an injury happens or a massive setback, your future that maybe you once imagined and once dreamed of almost gets cut in half. And it's like, how can you create that future now that you are in this situation? Um, and I think that's when thinking extremely deeply about the future can be dangerous because of the fact that you're on a high in life, because again life goes, you go through ups and downs. But when you're on a high and you're thinking, okay, everything's going to be perfect in my future, and then something like a massive setback happens, it's like, how do you deal with it? um, and sometimes this can be met with anxiety, and anxiety is definitely a real thing, because I definitely think anxiety is when you think too deeply about the future that you start worrying. um, and that's when thinking about your future can become a problem. So maybe that's why I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to get your opinion on kind of where you stand on that side of things. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this chat.
Yeah, I think the way I see it is you can always move towards your goal or what you're trying to. Once you've kind of set in stone what you want to achieve, you can always move every day. You can always move towards that goal. Now, when you're planning this goal or this dream or whatever you're aspiring to achieve, you're always thinking, of course, you're always thinking of the ideal situation where, okay, I want to achieve this and I'm going to do it in 6 months, and every day I'm going to do this, and this. And then life, eventually, when you embark on that journey, life hits you like a ton of bricks, and you're forced to be like, oh, okay, actually, I'm not going to be able to do this and this today to achieve this because I got injured, and I'm not going to. So then, how am I going to still achieve my goal or whatever? The path to achieving whatever you want to achieve, like whatever you want to succeed in, will never be straight. It's never going to be this straight road with no bumps and no hurdles. And I think the realization of knowing that can reassure you in that, like when you're reassure you not to give up when you're presented with that first hurdle, and the ability to adapt to, maybe today we're just getting 0.5% closer towards the goal. You don't always have to get 10% better every day or 1% better every day. We're not always going to have the facilities to do that. So all we can do in each and every moment and each and every day is work with what we've got in front of us. So if I have a broken leg and I'm still trying to get better at tennis, then okay, obviously I'm not going to get better on court today, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to sit around on my arse for 6 or 8 weeks while I still have the cast on and not try and get better. No, okay, I'm going to go onto YouTube. I'm going to search up a Wimbledon final and I'm going to analyze the match. And I'm going to see what this player was doing and his tactics and understand why he went to this place on this point and become better off my tactic game. I can still get better at that when I'm not actually on court. Or I'm going to meditate for 10 minutes so that when I get back onto the court, I'm actually really good at being able to be present in the moment and stuff like that, you know? It's not always going to be the way you envisaged striving towards a goal. There's going to be times at which you need to be able to adapt and overcome. But you can still get better and get closer towards a goal every single day, despite it not being what you might have thought it would have looked like at the very beginning, you know?
I definitely think if you have a solid goal, it can be a dangerous place to be. When you have just a defined, I'm going to be happy when I get this, that's dangerous, because I think that your goal should be fluid. You need to be able to have some sort of wiggle room when it comes to an end goal. I think you kind of need to have some sort of a plan to achieve this thing. And I think if you don't, you're not going to achieve it. I also think you need to break things down into, years, months, weeks, days. It's periodizing, and it's so important. If you have dreams and if you have goals, to really, really break it down onto the daily actions, like you mentioned. Like, can I get better today? Like, it's literally just the combination and the persistent action that is what will achieve the goal. And I think people can be scared of this large end goal that maybe they can't see in the moment. But it's a lot easier to just say, okay, let's just focus on today, you know? And I think another important topic and thing that I learned over the past, couple of weeks is that you need to enjoy this journey that you go on. I sometimes feel like when you're so focused on a goal, you kind of disregard everything else in your life, that you just simply are in a mode where you just don't care about anything else. You just want to be, I don't know, in your room and grinding away on things that maybe you feel like are massive steps, but it really is just about enjoying every single day and doing one, two things every single day to get to the sort of end goal that you have. Because I really don't think you're going to be happy if it's just, I'm going to be happy when I get the Lamborghini, and I know we've probably talked about it a lot, how that is an awkward place to be in when you get the Lamborghini. What do I do now? So how far in advance do you think we should think? Maybe, is it just the days, or is it maybe weeks, or how far in advance are you planning?
Yeah, I think it's hard, isn't it? Because firstly, what you were saying was kind of thinking too far, like having big aspirational goals and big goals that you want to achieve in the future. That's great, and absolutely every single person should have these aspirational goals that they're not even sure if they can achieve, but that's the direction that they're trying to go in, and because that's the exciting stuff in life, whatever it could be. You might say you want to be one of the top 10 entrepreneurs from Ireland ever to live, or whatever it is. That's an aspirational goal, and that's far into the future, and who knows if you'll ever achieve that, but maybe you will. But that's the sort of thing that keeps you alive. That's the stuff that keeps you going, Having said that, those aspirational goals, the reason so few people achieve that sort of thing is because the distance between where they are now and what they want to achieve the distance between that is so great and so large that it can be off-putting if that's the only thing that you're striving towards, and it can be hard to achieve said things without a sense of direction. And that's where the day-to-day stuff comes in. So the way I like to do things when I have an aspirational goal or a goal that's really far into the future, you absolutely need that. So whatever that is, that could be 2 years down the road, or 4 years down the road, or 5 years down the road, whatever that type of goal is. That's the thing that I'm striving towards. But once I've decided what that is, I kind of park that in the back of my mind, and then I substitute it. I substitute that with kind of medium and short term goals. The medium term
Mhm.
goals are the stuff that, like, on say 6 month reflections, I can be like, okay, yeah, I achieved this and I achieved this, and that got me a little bit closer towards that kind of final end goal. That's the medium term goals, and then the short term goals are kind of is kind of that day to day living of that of trying to achieve those medium term goals. So that's the getting up early, that's the grinding on the training, or whatever it is, the stuff that you work day in and day out of, and that's the stuff that you focus on every single day. I do think it's important every now and again to take a step back and look where you are and reflect and say, am I actually going forward? But I think if you're constantly disassociated from the present moment and the day to day striving towards that goal, and you're constantly just looking at the future, it can be disheartening, because you're like, say, someone who's never run a 5K before, but their ultimate goal is to run a marathon. If they run once, it's going to be hard to be like, I'm closer to being able to complete a marathon tomorrow, or whenever it might be. And that's why a lot of people find it hard to stick with goals that they've set themselves, because oftentimes the gap from where they are from to what they want to achieve just seems as if it's impossible to achieve that thing. But it's through the day-to-day implementing of these kind of smaller tasks that will get you towards your goal. So yeah, in a long-winded way, I think it's really important to look far into the future and have really good defined goals. They don't have to be kind of set in stone, and like you say, as you embark on your journey, oftentimes that end goal will change into a different thing or something greater than you ever even thought that it might be. But yeah, I think it's important. But in order to complete those things, you need to kind of stay within the present moment every day.
Do you think it's a discipline problem of people who don't achieve their goals? Do you think they're unable to achieve these things because they're unable to uh, disassociate from the goal? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
Like the daily grind is like almost too much because what is it, short term gratification? Like they can't. I was listening to was I listen? I can't remember what it was, but basically it was like, oh yeah, I was doing some studying on dieting basically, and I was doing like looking at research, and the the common theme of people who uh, maintained the or the common theme of people who maintained a consistent weight loss over a period of time was those who could disassociate from the now and their end goal. So basically, a pizza was put in front of them, let's say, and they said, okay, yes, this pizza would be lovely to eat right now, but does this align with my future goal? Like, does this pizza put me over my daily calories, let's say? Yes. So does that align with my future goal? So it's like, uh, do you think certain people are unable to look at the pizza and say, that would be lovely, instead of saying, well, I actually want to lose 10 kg in the next 15 weeks?
yeah, 100%. For a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of people like me. I'm just as guilty as I'm sure a lot of people are. Like, ultimately, for the most part, because there are some like circumstances where it doesn't apply, but for a large majority of people, the reason that they don't achieve goals that they set out on is that kind of inability to demonstrate consistency, and that results in that's coming from a lack of discipline. Um, and it's really tough, because that lack of discipline in the moment doesn't seem to have a massive effect on you reaching your goal. If I want to run a marathon in 8 months' time and I'm starting my training now and I'm supposed to on a Sunday run 5k, but I'm like, nah, I'm kind of not feeling it today. Like I'm not really feeling it, so I don't think I will. But the marathon's in 6 or 8 months, so I don't really need to worry about it too much, you know? Yeah, probably in that first week it probably won't have an effect, but that lack of discipline is going to catch up with you at a certain point. And I feel like that's where most people kind of just drop their goals that they want to try and to achieve. I always find that for people that want to achieve something, smaller bouts of really consistent work will always provide better benefit than really intense work at like really just going hammer and tongs at a goal at the very start. Um, because that type of behavior is just unsustainable. I feel. I think like if you're trying to achieve something, the best way to go about it is just consistency, and consistently doing small amounts is gonna get you there. And yeah, okay, it might take you longer than if you were to go really intensely for the whole journey. But no one is ever going to be able to achieve something that they go really consistently at for the whole. Like no one is going to be able to keep that trajectory for that the duration of time it takes to achieve that goal. That's impossible. So doing small bouts of consistent work is the only way to go about achieving a goal. And yes, it does take discipline because oftentimes the goals that people want to achieve are really far into the future, and it can be hard to kind of see like, no, this is actually having quite a big effect on me, and kind of in the short term, yes, I know, okay, the pizza was nice, and it can be like, it's not that bad, like I still have 15 weeks or whatever to achieve this goal or whatever. But I think the more you do that, obviously the more it's going to harm you. So yeah, being able to consistently work at the small things every single day is the only way you're going to be able to achieve a goal. And I know it doesn't seem as if it is significant, but I think the longer we do the smaller things, the more they just compound, and then the longer you do it, obviously it just turns into exponential growth. Um, but yeah, of course, it's fucking hard to do that, and when it actually comes to doing the thing, it's hard to do it, and it's hard to be consistent.
Yeah, like I think we mentioned before, like the inertia to start something is so much greater than continuing to do something. And again, when it goes back to the daily actions and the daily pursuit, like almost tricking yourself into having daily wins is like key, you know? So having stuff on your to-do list and ticking them off at the end of the day is almost just as important as the end goal, you know? Because it, like you said, it's the continuation of those daily things, those daily actions that will get you to the end goal. And um, even though like setbacks are bound to happen, I think staying focused and maybe taking a detour on the route to success is important. So I had this kind of idea when I got injured. Obviously, not in the moment because I was extremely upset when I
Mm-hmm.
got injured. But over the last 8, 9 weeks, since I've kind of had a lot of time to reflect and a lot of time to think, and it's almost like this injury and maybe a setback in someone else's life is almost like the scenic route, you know? The journey, like we said, the journey is not a destination. Or the success and the end goal is maybe not a destination. It's the journey to really get to wherever it is. And if there's a scenic route that maybe takes longer, but is more fulfilling and more enjoyable in the long run, you'd much rather take that route than sit on the motorway for hours and hours and hours. I know the motorways in Iowa are the most boring thing ever because it's just cornfields and everything. And I'd much rather take the long way home to see the sea or to see wherever. Like I remember I used to sometimes drive home like the coast road instead of just going the back roads.
Mm-hmm.
It take me an extra like 15 minutes, but just to be able to see and something different, and that's the way I'm looking at this injury and like this setback is like, yes, of course, it takes me off the say beaten path that I had thought that I'd created for myself, but ultimately it's going to lead me to a lot more. It's going to teach me a lot more, and again, that's hard to do in the moment, but I think it's more beneficial to do it that way and to think that way, because sometimes if you're just so focused on that path and so focused on that end goal, fuck, if something bad happens, you'll end up in a hole. Um, obviously that's after a lot of reflection. That's what kind of I've come up with about this injury, and I don't really know the answer. I don't really know what the full extent of this injury is, because once I find out, I'll kind of be able to plan it a little bit more. And actually, that was a big lesson for me over the past couple of weeks. Is like when the vision and when the end goal is like completely different than the reality that you are in, like currently. As someone who is extremely goal oriented and driven to succeed, it is hard to take a step back. Do you know what I mean? Uh, and I definitely found that difficult the first couple of weeks, not knowing, not having any clarity on what the injury is, how long I'm going to be out, and that was a massive lesson for me. And again, I wouldn't have probably learned that if I had been sat on the motorway, you know?
Yeah, that brings me to a question that I want to ask, and you kind of maybe got at it a little bit there with what you were
Yeah.
saying. But say if we're on a journey, and we've said a couple of times within this podcast so far that like it's really, really important, and we emphasize a lot like the ability to appreciate the journey and love the journey when you're going to achieve a goal. Why? Like if I'm training if I'm gonna train if I'm gonna train for a marathon and I'm gonna train for 6 months, and the day I run the marathon, I know that that's gonna be when I cross that finish line, that's gonna be the best feeling ever. That's gonna be such elation and joy, and it's gonna be such an amazing feeling to complete my first ever marathon. But why are you saying enjoy? Like, why do we need to enjoy the journey? Like for what benefit is it to us to really appreciate and be present in the journey and enjoying the process of achieving that goal? Because I already know that there's this glory waiting for me when I cross that finish line. I'm chasing that feeling. But why should I also enjoy that process when I'm training for said marathon?
Because you're gonna die one day, bro.
Okay,
you're literally
good
gonna
answer. Yeah,
you're
cool.
literally gonna die. No, I think, and you meant, let's say we take the marathon for example, and you train for 5 months to complete the marathon. It takes you 5 hours to run the marathon, and that feeling of elation will be for 20 minutes after you complete the marathon.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be like, fuck, my legs are pretty battered here. But I achieved the goal, yeah, yeah, yeah. And you sit down, you're like, wow, what's next? You know? And for some people, that extreme surge of dopamine from achieving the marathon can be met with this extreme low and this lull of like, fuck, like I'm so sad here. I've no goal to achieve. I've nothing to do. And I think when you can enjoy the whole process, and when you can enjoy the whole, okay, uh, this run was great. I felt amazing on my 20K long run on a Sunday. The following Sunday, then you get to 18K and you die with a stitch and you're on the ground. I can't run anymore. And then the following week, you run 22K and you feel great. It's like this constant battle of ups and downs and ups and downs. And then I feel like when you get to the end, you'll maybe be more, uh, what's the word? You'll maybe be more kind of, if you'll feel more accomplished because you'll be proud of the work that you've put in. I think that's a much better feeling than just hating every single minute of the journey and then getting your Lambo and getting your or achieving your uh, you're achieving your marathon or whatever. I also think if you don't enjoy what you're doing, it'll probably be hard to stick to. Because I know if I hate running, I think I would do anything to avoid a 35-kilometer run on a Sunday morning. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you again if you're enjoying the process, you're almost like looking forward to the next thing, and because I feel like if you hate it, like why are you doing it? You know, so that's what I think.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that's so right. I also think if you listen to any high performing person ever speak about their successes or whatever, you will hear that I I'm pretty confident in saying that all of those people will say that their elation and their joy lasted less than whatever 15 minutes.
Yeah,
Like you ask, I remember listening to a podcast with Johnny Wilkinson, and he won the World Cup with England. I think it was 2002 they won it, and to win a World Cup, like win a World Cup for your country with scoring a drop goal in the last minute, like that must be the best feeling in the whole entire. Like that's what people dream of. That's what kids dream of, and that's what you train for your whole life, and then you go and achieve it. He said that thing like that lasted maybe less than a minute. That pure elation and pure joy that you work your whole life for lasted less than a minute. If we're constantly focusing on, if we're only working towards, and we're only going to take a step back and appreciate the times that we succeed. So that was 20 seconds of joy for however long he was
20
training.
years. Yeah,
For 20 years. So you're telling me that you're going to train 20 years, and the only part that you're going to step back and be like, fuck, I really appreciate this, and I really am enjoying this journey, is that moment that you've achieved. I mean, at that point, what is the point?
yeah,
What's the point in that if you're training for 20 seconds of pure bliss? And then it's also followed by that dip in, and you also listen to these people, these high achieving people, and all of them say as soon as they achieved the best thing, the thing that they've been training 20 years for, a few minutes after they achieve it, they're like, oh, fuck, what do I do now? And I think that's really important. Like you said, if you've been able to be on the journey and appreciate the struggles and appreciate the downfalls and appreciate the times when you were getting better and you were feeling good and all this, and reflect on your consistency, your ability to deal with adversity, your persistence, your determination, your commitment. If you're able to appreciate all those things that are continually getting better on that either whatever 6 month training program while you're trying to achieve a marathon, the person that you are and that you have formed in trying to achieve that goal, that's what you're aiming for. It's not about the 4.5 5 hour marathon that you run on the whenever the marathon is. It's not about that. That's just the cream. That's just the cherry on top. The whole part of it is the forming of you as a person to become a better version of yourself. And ultimately, I think that's what striving towards goals does to you. If you really genuinely go towards a goal wholeheartedly, it forms you as a person, and you become a better version of yourself by implementing these small habits on a day-to-day basis.
I think this is important that we talk about this topic now because as both of us come to the end of our college experience, along with many of our friends and maybe even a lot of people listening to this kind of would be similar in age to us, like we're going to experience a massive change in our life that my question to you is like, can you prepare for that? Can you prepare for like we talk about setbacks and how like I didn't know I was going to get injured, so I got injured and now I have to deal with it. But in what is it, 8 months time, maybe is it 9 months maybe for us, we're
Mm-hmm.
done and we're out in the real world. Do you think we can prepare in any way for that?
Prepare in what sense? Prepare for what's next. Like preparing for that next stage of life.
Yeah, like I mean, it's going to be so different. So is there any way that us and maybe some of the people that are listening Like, can they prepare? Like, what are you doing to prepare? I'm lost.
That's a good question, and yeah, I think it is. It's so hard to know. I think as much as it's supposed to be the most exciting time of your life, this transition period, it's also so hard
Yeah,
because for yourself and myself, who for the most part are lucky because we still have sports at the age of 22, 23, but like a large percentage of our kind of cohort and our people our age have given up sports by now, so they've lost that at 18 or going into college. So obviously that's what we talked about before, like having that as an identity. Is now that's going to be gone potentially in May or whenever we decide to give up sports. And then yeah, you're in the real world. I think I don't know the way and maybe this is a cop out answer, but the way I'm preparing for it is just like just not getting stressed about it. I don't know what the future is going to look like in a year's time because okay, so firstly, I don't know what I want to go and do with my career. Like with my career, I don't know what I want to go study in terms of going to maybe doing a master's. I don't know what that looks like. I have general ideas, but I'm also not in any rush to decide what I want to do. And I fear a lot of people our age get stressed by the idea of needing to figure out what they need to do and what they need to do with their lives and looking into the future and being like, shit, like I don't know what I want to do. I'm this age and a few people around me have like big boy jobs now and they all kind of have this path set out in front of them and they all know what they're doing. But I don't know what I want to do because I don't really have that kind of passion within myself to go and do this thing. I'm 22. I still consider myself a child. Like I am fully a child and I am not in and maybe this is naive and maybe this is the wrong way to go about it, but I just feel as if like I still feel as if I'm so young and I don't feel any pressure to go and have an answer for what I need to do. So in answer to your question, the way I'm preparing for it is by not fucking preparing at all. Like I'm not like I just I'm excited at this new stage of transition. I'm looking forward to going home and I'm looking forward to finding what will because I'm a believer in like what's for you won't pass you and things will present themselves to you in like when they're ready to and maybe not even when they're ready to because you're not always going to be ready to you're not always going to be 100% ready for the things that present themselves to you. But I'm excited at the idea of going and finding out what I want to do, whether that's going and doing a graduate entry job in some biotech company back in Dublin when I go home, or working in a retail shop so that I can do an internship as well and try and figure out something else like that. Like I don't necessarily know. Or maybe I find in the next few months I find a master's program that I really want to go and do. Or maybe I'll just call that all off, work for a few months and go traveling around the world for a few years. I don't know, you know?
yeah,
But I'm flexible and open to what will present itself. And I'm okay with not knowing for a while, because
yeah.
I'm 22. I'm a literal child. So yeah, that's probably a cop out answer. I don't know. How about you? How are you preparing?
I like realistically, I'm the same. Like, I kind of know what direction I want to go in. Like you mentioned, you want to go home. I want to stay here. Uh, I don't know for how long. I don't know kind of where. There's certain cities that I'm interested in. And like you said, it's just a general direction. Like, we're very lucky that we have. Hopefully, we're going to graduate with a degree. We're going to be able to have this piece of paper, whether it matters in the real world or not. We're going to have this piece of paper to go and find a job or find or do whatever. And like, I feel like you mentioned how people are scared of the transition and scared of and worried about maybe, like you said, someone else has a real big boy job and I don't know what I want to do. People can be scared and people can be lost. I think probably one of the most important things to do if you're in that stage is, well, first of all, not be scared because the majority of people have no fucking idea what they're doing. And secondly, is like, go learn a bunch of shit. Like, go learn as much as you can. Like, I know that, and this is, again, this is my opinion. Whether it's right or wrong is another question. But I think you need to have like a base knowledge of as many skills as possible. And I think, that saying, what is it? Like, jack of all trades, master of none. I think if you could be a master of one, but also kind of like can dip your toe in lots of other areas, you become so much more valuable for a business to start your own business. You become much more valuable to everyday life. Like if you have a conversation with someone, because if you're just so focused on coding, for example, if you're just a programmer, that's all you do all day, every day. You code. Yeah, you may be unbelievable. You may be the next, Elon Musk and start the next business, and well for you. But you might not be able to have a conversation. You might not be able to have the ability to order a coffee. Like, hello, how are you? You know what I mean? Like, and you don't want to
Hmm.
get to that stage. You want to be as extremely rounded as possible. That's what I definitely done the last while. It's what I'm doing with obviously the podcast. Like, we had to learn how to do a podcast. This is a cool. You might go into your biotech company, who are just really interested in starting a brand for their business. You can put your hand up and say, "Well, yeah, I actually know how to start a podcast. I know how to set up mics. I know how audio works. I know how to edit." They're like, "Fuck, come in here. We'll give you a raise. We'll give you loads of money. Throw everyone else out the window. You're the main man." It's like, but if you hadn't have picked up that skill, if you hadn't have taken a step outside your comfort zone to learn something else other than the master vision, the thing that you are so focused on, you become so much more valuable to the world. And I think for people who are maybe stuck in their retail job and they maybe just finished their college degree, or maybe they didn't even go to college, I think learn as much as you can. Learn a language, learn a skill, like, obviously, online skills are probably the most important thing to learn right now. And I think YouTube is the most amazing platform to learn anything. Like, that's where I learned everything that I know, like about social media, about marketing, about the podcast, about, like, even like I was doing studying for like my anatomy, I was doing studying for my like diet and stuff like that. I just go on YouTube and learn from these people. There's billions of videos. And I think for people, like I said, who are maybe stuck, who are a bit lost, just go learn as much as you can. And if you really want to, you can take 15 minutes of your day to learn something. Because, like we said, 15 minutes every single day at the end of the year adds up massively. And you'll honestly be in such, you might even find your purpose then. Do you know what I mean? You might even, along the journey, say, fuck, well, I actually love doing this. Let me just devote all my time to doing this now. Get a job, start a business, do whatever. And I think that is so key, is maybe become a master of one. Like, hopefully I'm going to be a master. Obviously I have a lot to learn, but I have the piece of paper to say I'm a master in exercise physiology, but I know a lot more. And I think I'm going to continue to learn as much as I can over the next year before I finish, and before and at the end, I'm like, what do I do now? Luckily I'm probably not in a position where I'm going to say what now. I kind of have visions, and obviously growing the brand, and growing hopefully the business, and you know maybe even just getting a job to learn, and all that stuff. And I'm definitely not scared about transitioning out. I don't know, are you scared, are you worried, or how do you feel?
No, no, I'm not. And I think, well, I think it's important for me, or I think it's important for us to be able to take a step back and kind of recognize and be grateful for how lucky we are to not be stressed about that transition period. Because I know for a lot of people, like, and life can be very, very tough, and people can fall into very unlucky circumstances and be born into circumstances where, like, unfortunately for some people that's not an option, and
Absolutely, yeah.
they'll have to, maybe they'll drop out of college and they'll have to go get a job straight away to support family or loved ones, or whatever it may be, so I count myself very, very lucky to not have any worry about this transition period, because I know I'm being allowed the freedom to go and search for what I want and what I want to do. And as a result of that, my belief is that, like, your 20s, if you have the ability to do it, should just be a time of going and finding out what you want to do and what you love.
Explore.
Um, Now, having said that, like I said, say for example, like my parents, for example, when that generation, the large majority of them had to either leave secondary school and go straight into a job because obviously times were tight back then, and you had to go get a job and you had to start working money to become independent for yourself. Um, Not everybody was able to get a college education. Not everybody was able to get a college degree and stuff, and then start exploring their options and not feel as if they have.
Find themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Not everybody had the luxury of taking 2 or 3 years to search 4 or 5 different jobs or 4 or 5 different areas and understand that. But so I say that being very, very grateful for the position that I'm going to be in the next couple of years, because I'm going to have that freedom to maybe just go get a little job on the side to support myself and become like have that independence. But then also at the same time, I can go and start finding things that I want to start doing. And ultimately, that's what excites me. Is kind of I feel like the 20s should be a time for those that are able to do it, a time for exploration and finding out what you want to do. Um, because yeah, I'm grateful to be in a place where I have been taught all my life that you should kind of work to live as opposed to live to work. And I think that's really important. And this is an important time of our life where looking into the future can potentially be a scary thing, because you need to work. Some people in life are told that you have to get a job as soon as you get out of college, and you need to settle down, and you need to save to get a mortgage and all this sort of stuff. The future can be a scary thing depending on your circumstances. But I think if you have the ability to do it, just go and explore in your 20s and find things that you like. Because if you're able to get into a job or an occupation that you love and gets out of bed in the morning, that's ultimately what I'm striving for now in the next year
Yeah,
or two.
I think that again. That is maybe one of the end goals, and then I think sometimes maybe on social media people demonize just working, like working a
Mm,
9 to 5,
mm,
um, and oh, you need to start this business, or there's this new business model, or sometimes it's kind of demonized, and I do feel like I am kind of maybe looking forward to having a job, like a real job, being
mm,
fully dependent on myself, and I think like with personal training, let's say it is kind of, if you don't work, you don't get any clients. Like in a
mm,
way, I feel like sometimes maybe a 9 to 5, like on a Friday afternoon, you could put down your laptop and you're done. Where and for my industry, and hopefully the thing that I'm going to be doing soon, is like, okay, well, if you don't market yourself, or if you don't get up at 5 a.m. to train your 6 a.m. client, like, you're not going to make any money, and then you're going to be in the bin. So honestly, that is something I'm looking forward to, and maybe it's strange, and maybe it's people are maybe listening to this and being like, how are you excited to be out in the real world? I think for some people listening, they may be dreading the fact that they have to maybe take some sort of accountability for their life. Maybe some, like, even though, like you mentioned, how you think you're still a kid, like we are, and I think there is so much to learn, and so much room to grow. But I think there does come a point where you need to take something seriously. And I don't necessarily mean like, okay, have your fun, and then now it's time to lock in. Like, because I don't like that idea of work, 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 work until you're 65 and then retire. I don't know if I really agree with that, but I definitely think breaking up your year, breaking up your decade, let's say, maybe into like explore fun times, maybe lock in work, make money times, and I think that would probably be like the lifestyle that would be most desirable. Is that, like, work really hard. There's no sacrifice for for hard work. Like, you need to fucking put yourself out there, and work as much as you can, but then also have your downtime, and be able to enjoy your little Friday night date night, or your runs, or your exercise, things like that. And I think maybe if you are scared about the future, and you're scared about that accountability, it might be hard to listen to this conversation because we're both coming from a point of view where, like you said, we're extremely fortunate to be in the position we're in. We've worked extremely hard to get in this position. We can't deny that, but we are fortunate that we are in a position where we know the field that we want to be in, but we're okay if maybe things don't work out in the next year, the next 6 months, the next 5 years, because we're confident maybe, well, for me anyway, I'm confident that I will do well and I will work hard at whatever it is that I end up doing. So maybe if there are people that are listening that are scared, what could we say to them? Like, chill out, man. just go to Bali and do some ayahuasca or something. No,
Yeah.
don't clip that. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a hard question to answer because everyone's situation is different. Like everyone is in a different scenario where they may need to find a job or they may need to kind of look after themselves or whatnot, you know. Um, but I think insofar as like you have the ability to start exploring, I think it's so important, and I would advise as much as possible when you're in your 20s and you have a job or whatever it might be. If you don't love it, there's no pressure to stay in it for a
Mm,
prolonged period of time just because it might seem as if it's the right thing to do, you know? Like if you're in a job that you hate, what's the point in staying? Like for what benefit? Who's
what are you
benefiting from you?
learning?
Yeah, what benefit are you getting from staying in that job, you know? There's a million other things that will also pay minimum wage or pay whatever wage you're paying that you might enjoy more, or you might be able to kind of, yeah, just figure things out a little bit more, you know? Um, that would be the one thing I would say. If you have the ability to get out of said job that you just aren't a fan of, get out of it. Go find something else, you know? You're probably and maybe it's okay to take, if you're able to again, maybe it's not a bad thing to take a 5 or 10% pay cut for a new job that might actually excite you a little bit more and there's more scope for development and whatnot, then just sticking in that job that is comfortable, it's okay, and it's paying the bills and stuff. But it's when once you're on that hamster wheel, it's pretty hard to get off. You know, I imagine it's hard to get off that once you get out into that big bad world of working and paying bills and all that sort of stuff. You
Mm,
know, it's hard to once you get into a particular job. I'm sure it's hard to just get off, and once you get locked into one particular job, you're gonna blink and it's gonna be 15 years down the road, and you're gonna be like, fuck. I kind of wish I maybe explored a little bit more because now I'm 45 and I've still got 15 years till I have to, or 15, 20 years until I retire. And I put them in a job that I really hate, and I haven't, like, I'm stuck in it now because it's going to be hard for me to start again, you know, because I'm 45, you know. So if
mm.
you have the ability to go out and explore when you're young, I really, really think it's important, you know.
I think like if you really want something, you'll make it happen. And
Mm,
when you say explore, I hope people don't think like it's just okay, let's drop everything and move to Australia,
mm,
because that seems to be a common thing for a lot of people. Uh, a lot of people I know are kind of interested in going, and you know, we were very lucky that we had a reason to go. And again, we mentioned this last week about how you need to have a why and all that type of stuff. But like when you say explore, what comes into my mind is like, do you have 15 minutes every day to do a bit of research, to do a bit of learning, to do a bit of reading, to do some sort of inner reflection on you? 15 minutes a day. It's all you need. Like, if you can do more, fucking well and good. But if all you can afford is 15 minutes a day, and I guarantee you, if you are listening to this, you have 15 minutes of your day. Like, if you look at your screen time, I'm sure you can cut that by 15 minutes and add in some sort of learning, some sort of reflection. Um, because that's what I done last year, and that's what I'm doing right now with all the stuff that I have in my life in terms of school, in terms of studying, in terms of, being with the team, like all that type of stuff. I find time to learn, to study, to do extra work because I want to. And I know that, again, talking about the future and the whole topic of this podcast, I know that that little 15 minutes will help me in my quest to the end goal. Yes, and again, I know that I may not see the result of that 15 minutes in 10 years' time, but it's the continuation of those little 15, 20 minutes here and there that I love and that gives me fulfillment because I know that I'm on the path that, I want to be on. And I think, like you mentioned, like having a job and having a stable job is fucking great because you know that you have that in the back, you have that in your back pocket, you know. But I guarantee you, if you can just get up 15 minutes early and do a bit of research, do a bit of whatever, and explore, because again, that might help you in your quest to find meaning, quest to find your purpose, and quest to find, the future version of you. Those little 15 minutes here and there honestly might change your life. So that's honestly, if I could give like one piece of advice for someone who maybe thinks extremely deeply about their future and maybe they see themselves a bit lost, just do a bit of research, man. Take time out of your day to learn and to put yourself out there because you never know what might happen, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I love it. One of the last things I wanted to kind of touch on before we wrap up, I want to get your opinions on what you understand. The whole, like, as we talk about, like, this, obviously this episode is surrounded by kind of the future and thinking into the future and whatnot. I want to get your opinions on what you understand the term like manifesting to be.
Mm.
Like, this is something that I I don't know. I go back and forth between, but before I say anything, I want you. If you have any opinions on it, well, what do you understand it to be? Because it's something that I haven't done too much work into, but maybe I subconsciously have been, and I
Mm.
never really knew it. What do you think it to be?
Like manifestation and meditation kind of go hand in hand a little bit for me. Um, when I think of manifestation, right, I think Pinterest.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you have Pinterest. I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
your Pinterest algorithm looks like, but my Pinterest is like Porsches and watches and holiday destinations. So when I think manifestation, I just automatically think about my Pinterest board, like future lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think we mentioned this, like that can be extremely dangerous because what if I try all my might and I don't have the Porsche when I'm 60? I'm going to feel extremely unfulfilled and unaccomplished because I didn't achieve that vision in my life that I manifested. I think manifestation without action means fuck all. Uh, Thinking that you're going to get a Porsche without finding any sort of way to make enough money to afford a Porsche is pointless. So manifestation in its purest form of thinking about the future that you want to live is great, but I also think you need to think about the actions that you're going to take each and every day to achieve that thing. Um, so maybe that answers your question. Maybe I'm a bit harsh, but it's great. It works along with meditation, along with journaling. Just don't get too caught up by it because you'll end up in a bit of a hole when the things that you want and the things that you desire don't come quick enough because you're not taking the daily action.
Yeah, I love it, and that's. I'm interested. I was just interested to hear your opinion because I think I'm similar enough to you in that, like, maybe sometimes manifestation can get mixed up between like a bit of a genie in the bottle type thing. Like I'm gonna stick up, yeah, like whatever you said, like a Porsche or whatever. I'm gonna stick this goal up or this dream life up, and I'm gonna put it on my board, and it's just gonna happen one day. You know, it's not like you don't wish. It's manifesting isn't wishing. How I understand manifesting to be is like that stuff up on the Pinterest board or something that you can see a visual representation of where you're trying to go. But that also needs to be followed by the living and breathing of the actions that are going to get you to that place. That's what I kind of understand manifesting to be, or manifestation. You living the life of the, like, kind of the living of the pursuit of that goal, you know? Um, and I think in that way it can be a really good thing, because if I wake up every morning and I have whatever, like your example, say I wake up and every morning I've got a picture of a Porsche on my wall, I'm gonna be like, yeah, fuck, okay, like I'm gonna work hard today to try to get 1% closer to getting that Porsche, you know. I think that can be a good thing, but also, yeah, I think you're right, and I maybe didn't think of that. Like, I think you have to have a strong mind in terms of when you're manifesting, because yeah, ultimately, if it does lead to you never being able to get that Porsche, it doesn't make you a failure. Like, it doesn't make you a failure of a person, but um, I think for the most part, it can be a good thing if manifesting is followed by the actions that it will take to achieve said goal. You know.
Absolutely. No, it's we've maybe sounded like we've put it down, but you need to fucking dream.
Mm,
Like, you need to have outrageous. If you want to achieve something outrageous, you need to have outrageous dreams and have complete self belief that you're going to achieve this thing.
mm,
Um, but again, it's also just fucking putting in the work to achieve these things.
yeah.
And I am a believer in, if you want something, write it down. Like, I definitely have wrote down 5, 10 year goals and kind of end goals, and there again, I think you mentioned like just something to strive towards, something to work towards, because if maybe I didn't have any sort of direction, I'd kind of just be floating around aimlessly, and would get a bit lost. So I definitely think you need to dream, you need to manifest, you need to believe that you're going to achieve these things, you're going to succeed in your future, you're going to have a good life in your future. But you need to bring it back to your day, and you need to just do stuff every single day to achieve, the daily pursuit of the end goal.
Boom. Mic dropped. Boom.
There's,
Good way
there
to
was a
end
few mic drops in there,
it. Love it. No, I
a
loved
few
it. That was
clips.
good.
Yeah, I think that was a good chat, man. Well, we'll keep it rolling. We have a few guests that we kind of have lined up, which is exciting. Obviously, Oisin's episode went live yesterday. Um, that was a cool chat. Unfortunately, Ciaran wasn't there to witness. He was busy, like we all are. But hopefully, we can get more episodes with guests out. I have a couple of people that I want to chat to. Ciaran has obviously a few people that he wants to chat to as well. And if you do have, if someone's listening, obviously if you've got to the end of this, respect. But if you have anyone that you want to hear, let us know. We'll try to get them on. The more guests we get on, the more likely we are to get guests on,
Mm-hmm.
because it's called something called social proof. So
Yeah.
we need to get more social proof. But we're getting listens, we're getting followers, we're getting all that type of stuff, which is cool, because it just again spreads the message of the brand more and more. So yeah,
Love it. Let's keep rising. Let's keep rising, baby.
just start. We'll leave it
There
there.
you go.
Come on. See you
Peace.
everyone.